Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dhara Chandramouli, and I am the Director of Marketing at Rangam. I know all of you were expecting to see Nish, but due to some scheduling conflict and some time zone differences, unfortunately, he is not here. So, on his behalf, I welcome you all. I just wanted to say Rangam has introduced our new Ready or Rangam Empathy Drives Innovation series. The series includes blogs, chats, webinars, and many other features designed to get you ready for that next step. Whether you are a job seeker, employer, educator, a community partner, Ready will have something for you. Today's Ready chat topic is all about neurodiversity. I'd like you to introduce you to our guest, Professor Amanda Kirby. She wears many hats. She is a medical doctor, an academician, a researcher, an author, and above all, a very stout campaigner for the neurodiverse. She is the CEO of a fast expanding tech, health, educational, as well as work based profiling company, which has developed an innovative computerized assessment platform for schools, colleges, employability, and apprenticeship sectors. I don't think I'll be able to do justice, so I'd like Amanda to introduce herself a little bit more. Hello, Amanda. Welcome.
Hello, thank you, and thank you very much for inviting me today. I suppose I'm an oddball. That's the thing. So, I fit different hats, and I don't fit any hat. I think that's and I think that's what we're talking about this evening as well. Is that people have spiky profiles where you have your strengths and talents, and you see the world in a certain sort of way. And I came to where I am because of my family experience of having neurodivergent family members and needing to try to navigate systems and understand them as a doctor, as a parent, and then became more interested clinically, and then more interested in research, and then thinking about solutions, and then started working in the tech world to try and find those solutions as well. So I sort of straddle lots of different areas. So yeah, I'm an oddball. I think that's the best way to describe myself.
Uh, yeah. Earlier, when we were speaking, I came to realize that you have a fascinating career journey. Can you please tell us a little bit about it and how it all started and why? What is your why right now?
Well, my passion and drive for championing neurodiversity is a very personal one. And more than 25 years ago, one of my children was diagnosed with dyspraxia or developmental coordination disorder. And at that time, people knew very little about what that was and thought that children grew out of it, so that this was, and all the time people said, you mean dyslexia? Every time I said dyspraxia, they went, no, you mean dyslexia. And I go, no, I didn't. No, I don't. So I ended up trying to write something. This is what it means. I had to navigate my way around the system for us to get help and support. We had to tell a story again and again. And I realized that my experiences were also the experiences of many, many other people as well. I was working as a GP, a family doctor, and I thought, if it's challenging for me and I sort of understand systems, the healthcare system, then this must be really hard. So I started up naively, I think, 25 years ago, an interdisciplinary centre where health and education came together, so that parents, because at that stage it was children, we didn't thinking about them growing up, parents could come, and it was person-centred. So we're thinking about the child in the context of their family and what the interests were. And then I started thinking about trying to find solutions that could reach more people. So it was lovely seeing one person in a clinic and another person, but how do we make this reach more people? And then started looking at the technology and started developing technological solutions, which, again, naively, I think, because when I started off, and then tried and tested over the last 10 years to develop the solutions that are contextually appropriate for the person, the environment they're in, the culture, the background they're in as well, to find those solutions. And I'm a grandparent of neurodivergent kids as well. So my premise for being passionate is making sure that children and adults out there are able to demonstrate their best selves, to promote their talents, to be able to have the same access opportunities in education and employment. So even today, 25, 30 years on, I'm still really think this is really important today.
Yeah, it is extremely important, and I would like to say that no effort is too small, as you are embodiment of it. That it is not how small the effort is, but how passionately you're doing it. And I feel that your passion is the one that is helping. Your passion is driving you to go to the next level and try and talk to people and convince people. Because I feel that there is still a lot of convincing that needs to be done
Yeah.
in many stages, irrespective of where we are. So
Yeah.
you also talk about understanding and supporting neurodivergent individuals at a person-centered level. I find that interesting. Can you please talk about it a little bit more?
Sure, sure. So why person-centered? I think the first thing is that often we go down a label pathway. So we say dyslexic people need this, autistic people need that. Well, the trouble is, though, with that is every single person is different. The way you live, and in the workplace, the work you do. So if you're working in an office, or you're a brain surgeon, or you're somebody building walls, your tasks you're doing, the environment you're in are going to be different. So you can't do, here's the 10 things for people with dyslexia, off you go. Here's the 3 things for people, off you go. It will never work. The other thing is that we keep needing to remind ourselves that our brains are connected in billions of different connections. And these boxes, constructs we talk about, dyslexia, autism, ADHD, dyspraxia, these actually all overlap often. You might not have the label, you may not have the diagnosis, but it doesn't mean you don't have a little bit of this and a bit. Your brains don't know about those boxes. You know, people put those labels on us, but it doesn't always describe who you are. So if we're going to take a person-centered approach, whether that's in school or in the workplace, we need to understand that person, their past experiences, their present experiences, their skills, their talents, their interests, and the environment they're going to be in. And that's a conversation we can all have. It's not about, I have to know all about, I don't know about ADHD, I can't support you because I haven't been on that course. It's actually about inviting conversations. It's about, tell me about yourself. Tell me what you like. Tell me what helps you. Tell me what stops you being your best self. And that is, I think, a person-centered conversation, because it's one we can have, all of us, and it's human and it's respectful.
Yeah, but isn't that true for any conversation? The first step of a conversation is tell me something about yourself. Once you have that, everything else flows from there. It doesn't matter if it's a professional or a personal setting, but still,
Yes.
those are the. And like you rightly said, putting everything in boxes doesn't work. And we were talking like a few minutes ago also that COVID has proven that nothing can be put in boxes. There is always a way. Flexibility is available. The only thing is either situations push it or we learn from situations and we adapt to them. And I feel that that's a fair way of saying that the neurotypical people or neurotypical individuals are talking about that it's important for us to be a little bit flexible, a little bit more empathetic, maybe a little bit more understanding to this.
Absolutely. And you can see in COVID, what we did realize that all of us had to adapt. So we had to change our environments because it was changed for us. And what we saw was for many of us, actually being at home, using technology, the ability to have a sign language interpreter in a virtual meeting, which would be much harder in a live meeting to organize this. There were lots of things that happened that enabled us that we could flex our environment to work for the individual. And it challenged a lot of the rhetoric about we had to have everybody in a building, sitting all together to prove they're working. And I think it's important now, what we saw for some neurodivergent folk, I know myself, being able to work from home and it's quiet and I can get up and walk around if I want to. it works extremely well for some people. It really does. And that's what we've got to recognize now as we go back, hopefully, we move forward. I don't think we should be going back. We need to move forward. We need to build forward better, not build back better. We need to go, what did we learn? What did we learn as individuals? So I've learned that I can be very productive focusing on things when I'm not in an office with lots of noises and people interrupting me, and and they're interrupting me because I'm nosy and I'm listening to every conversation, right? So the environment makes a difference. So we can learn that rather than going, let's bring everybody back. And I think we've got to be careful about that. And we need to reflect that different tasks require different environments, and different people work effectively in different environments. And when we have those, again, it's person-centered. We have, where do you work best to do that task? And that's a conversation we can all have.
That, I feel that is a very important conversation that all of us need to have. That being different makes it better. I mean, organizations and workplaces have always been talking about diversity and inclusion, but COVID and this pandemic and this phase of moving to the new changes that we are seeing in the workplace have started showing us the path that different is indeed better sometimes. I mean, we as a staffing company talk to many hiring managers and all, and we realize that accepting differences is something that everybody is a little bit reluctant to, because it impacts how they work, it impacts how their teams work. But a little bit of flexibility and being a little open about change actually impacts the whole organization, the productivity, the way, the mindfulness portion, the happiness portion that comes through with your team. So I totally agree with you. And you see, there are many ways of this, but what kind of training and coaching do you think that neurodivergent and autistic talent seeking employment are looking for? What kind of are they seeking, like very specific training or very specific coaching?
I think the first thing is, often people have been either if they've got a diagnosis of a neurodivergent condition, often they've been they might have gained a diagnosis of arms and legs, but not hands and feet. So they get part of who they are, right? And if you're going to prepare for the workplace, then you need to understand that, not to have lots of labels, but you need to understand where your strengths and your challenges lie, okay? But often we might screen for dyslexia in isolation, but not recognize somebody's got ADHD traits, which might be the bit you need some help with planning and time management and organization. So a lot of people want to have an understanding of themselves as a whole. Where are the bits that are going to be challenging for them? Because the more you can articulate your training and support needs, it's easier for the employer, it's easier for you to be prepared. So I think a lot of people are wanting to understand themselves as a whole, their well-being, what makes them tick and keeps them feeling and staying good, what helps them with their executive functioning, with their planning and their time management and their organization, and what helps them or doesn't about their communication preferences and styles. And so I think we've developed Profiler, which helps them to articulate that. That allows them then to be able to have those better conversations when they're being recruited or they're going into the workplace. And it means they're better prepared. But some people, coaching really is helpful, because sometimes I know when my children were growing up, to get them to clean their teeth every day, morning and night, I had to repeat often. And we all know that embedding change can be really difficult. So putting good diary systems in place, practicing some of these skills. And this is where coaching can be very helpful as well. So I think I need to know myself, but for some people, I might need some help to put the good things I need to do into practice. I might need some help and support to do so.
Talking about employability and employers and all, I just wanted to know what kind of work do you do with businesses to make them understand, and what kind of systems do you bring into place, and what kind of trainings do you? if you can touch upon them a little bit?
Sure, I can, of course. So we do tools, training, and consultancy, 3 elements. So the training, we go from awareness training. We'll start with some organizations are going, I don't know where we are. We're doing some bits, but I'm not sure where we are. And we have a maturity gap analysis tool. So we can come in and have a look at where people are on a maturity curve and where they need to put things in process. Fine grain from the advertising to job descriptions to recruitment to onboarding, just really going through all of those bits and then saying, okay, where should we focus and putting a plan together? So we help companies do that. We do awareness sessions. So sometimes in an organization, the first stage is, how do we start the conversation? How do we start the conversation inside the organization? So we'll come in and we'll do an awareness session, getting the terminology right. So people aren't worried about getting the right words, the wrong words, not having a conversation, giving some facts, so from an evidence base as well, what's it all about and why is it good for business? So we lay the ground, and then we have e-learning programs. So the e-learning programs can then mean everybody in the business can learn more about neurodiversity from a very practical way. So, and you can do that in your own time. And then we have accredited training as well, all the way to have in-house people, if you're a large organization, to have in-house navigators, really, to help support people within the organization. And then we have the tools. We have Profiler, which is a screening and assessment system which employers use to either have group conversations or to support individuals. So we work in a number of different ways and work with organizations to see the context of where they're working. So we might work with police, or we might work with fire service or army or fintech but every business is different. So it's having that conversation. It's being person-centered again.
Since we are already talking on employability, and staffing is something that we are very passionate about, and providing employment opportunities for people with neurodiversities as well as autism and disabilities is something our organization really strives to make things happen. I was wondering, how can we make the hiring process more inclusive? Because some people have labels, some people don't have labels. There are, as you said, that there is a lot of intersectionality. You have terms and terminologies for some of people. And so how do we make the hiring processes inclusive? What are your thoughts?
I think it's incredibly important, Dhara, that where we are at the moment in many cases is the hiring process fits a certain shape person. So that you've got to have reasonable digital skills. If you've got good communication skills and you can sell yourself, you can respond quickly in an interview, you can do very well. If you understand how applicant tracking systems work and you know to put keywords in, you can get higher up on the score. If you understand the rules of the game, then you do better. So the first thing is, I think, is that bell curve where if you fit that and you understand that, you'll do well. The challenge is we're missing so much talent. And often it's people who've been marginalized. It's people who don't have a diagnosis, haven't had an opportunity, can't afford it, can't access it. So I think it's really important we flatten the bell curve. And that means thinking about making our processes as inclusive as possible in an anticipatory way. That's not retrofitting. I think it's actually starting out and saying, I'm expecting some people not to be able to use IT systems. Some people who may need questions before the interview to prepare, because unless they're going to be, the job is to respond very fast. Why are we testing them or assessing them in that sort of way, right? So it's changing the narrative and saying, what's the job? What skills do we need? And how do we ensure that we tell people at every point of the recruitment process what's going to happen? And they can ask for help if they need it. So I always go, we want to see your talent. If you need some help and support to show us it, please let us know. And at every point we say, if you need help with the application process, let us know. In the interview process, if you're coming here, you're going to have 3 people on the panel. This is their names. This is how long it's going to last. This is what we expect. This is the building. This is the signpost. You give all the information, because it's a bit like going on your holidays and not knowing the food, the language, you know, what clothes to take. You're not giving me the rules to be able to play by. So we need to give people the rules to play by so that they can participate.
True. I mean, I'm not trying to make fun of it, but adventures are good, but planned adventures are better. That's how I look at this. Uh,
I think we don't know who hasn't applied. You see, I think at the moment, we don't know the people who get turned away, right? So we don't know the people who haven't applied for the jobs. We don't know the talent. So we can go, we seem to be getting more people in, but who are we missing when we're doing that? Who doesn't come to the table?
Like Nish usually says, we are in the habit of screening people out.
Yes.
Instead of screening people in.
Absolutely.
Like we have a job, we screen out candidates by saying that you don't have this, you don't have this, you don't have this, instead of looking at what they have and trying to understand if we are able to accommodate. I wouldn't like to use the word accommodate, because this is not a charity, but then it's a business. But having said that, it's still, if somebody walks in with a resume with a certain set of skills, there sure must be jobs open where they will be able to fit themselves and work and prove and show that they are doing, they are capable of doing well. So I feel that the culture of screening people in has to also be looked at. What do you think?
I agree. And I think we just need to be aware that somebody, I remember when my kids were applying for jobs, I would check their CV and I'd do proofing. Not everybody has a support structure around them. Not everybody has models around them to know how to put a CV together and what transferable skills are and how to think of those examples. And I think sometimes we forget that some people have never done those jobs and they've never done the processes and they're not so familiar. So you're absolutely right. We should be screening in, and that's that inviting. It's inviting people to have the opportunity to tell their story in a way that shows you their skills. And sometimes we say, well, if you can't dance, we don't want you. So, you know, it's our rules. And I had a company recently that said that they discarded CVs with spelling errors. So you just go, how many people are you've lost 10% of the population who are dyslexic based on your screening process. Well, you could be losing your best talent because of that. So I think it's checking and just opening our eyes to what are the biases that we might have just allowed to creep in, I think, really.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And we, as you rightly said earlier also, we need to change our hiring practices a little bit. Not drastically change and make it a free for all, but there has to be a far open-minded way of approaching candidates, maybe talking to candidates and understanding where they're coming from, what they bring to the table, and what the organization is actually looking. So I totally agree with you. Rangam believes that neurodiversity and disability hiring is not charity. I just said that too. We look for talented and qualified individuals who are incidentally neurodivergent or disabled, but perfectly capable of excelling in any role, just like anyone. I'd like to know about your approach to eliminating bias, because you touched upon it. So I just wanted to go there. And the preferential treatment when creating opportunities for neurodivergent people.
So I think one of the things you said, which is really important, that businesses are in business to run their businesses, right? And I think we have to keep remembering that. So what you want to, as a business, you want to hire the best talent you can, and you want to get it from the widest pool possible. So that's why if you start to understand about neurodiversity and you think about it as cognitive variability that there is in the population, and that how we've constrained how we've viewed and assessed people, we start to go, okay, as a business, I'm missing out on people, right? So the first thing is an awareness to see that we've missed out on that talent that's out there, right? The second is, I think the biases are things like understanding perhaps when somebody's communicating, that maybe we have to challenge that maybe you've thought if somebody's looking away, that they're not interested, they're not listening to. In actual fact, it might be because they're thinking, they're making some notes, that it's much easier to close their eyes. So we have to challenge the things that make us think that somebody's not interested, who can't do the job. So we need to check on that. For instance, some people might have what we call developmental language disorder, which means they might have difficulties understanding and decoding information, have working memory that takes them longer to process information. And so if you ask a question, there might be silence because that person is thinking and thinking of the response. And the bias is, oh, they obviously don't know the answer and he didn't respond quickly enough. So we have to check that to go and understand. I think we need to check our biases, that sometimes we have communication differences. That's often where things clash, where you like to do it one way and I prefer to do it another way. And what you've said, I haven't understood. And what I've said, you haven't understood. And I think it's checking those biases, that just because I've said it doesn't mean you've understood it. So we need to keep checking our assumptions, that I've sent it to you in a long list of 3 pages without any sign of what's important from what's not, right? Maybe your communication could be clearer, So so I think it's checking those things that we're assuming the way I do it is the way you should do it too, and we lose talent because of that.
One related question, since we are already talking about this, how does labeling people create inherent barriers that are difficult to overcome? For example, when we use terms like neurodiverse or autistic, do we automatically build a bias in our minds and then seek to confirm it with what we perceive to be true? Is that what do you think about that?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to ask you too much, but I really feel that these are important questions to ask.
they are important, and I'm happy to answer. So I think there are 2 sides. There's 2 sides to every coin. The first thing is, some people want a diagnosis. Some people want to understand a framing to say, oh, I understand myself better, and now I can talk to other people. I can gain help and support. For some people, it might be medication if that's what they want to have. So gaining a diagnosis, if it's the right one, because it may not be the right one, or it may not include everything, can be really helpful for some people's identity. However, the flip side of that is that if we assume that autistic people are X and can't do Y, then what that can be is that when you say to somebody, I have ADHD, or I'm dyslexic, or I'm on the autism spectrum, that may still at the moment, because there's varying awareness, it might be people saying, well, I didn't think you could do that job. My cousin's autistic and or my so-and-so's dyslexic, right? And you don't look much like them. So this is a problem. So potentially a label can be constraining when people have a rigid view about what does that mean. And autism, for instance, autism spectrum conditions or disorder, spectrum is in the key in the word. 2 people will have very different patterns of strengths and challenges, very different experiences, are very different people. And so we've got to be careful that even the ticket is a shortcut. It never describes a person. It starts a conversation. That's the thing. Again, being curious and respectful.
But that is true for individuals who are neurotypical too. No two people are similar. No 2 people are exactly the same.
No.
It is the practice of us putting everybody in boxes that has created this impression that, for example, if you are working in a certain position, you will be able to do a certain task in a certain way, talk, dress, work in a certain fashion.
Yeah.
Whereas that's not the fact. There are people who are neurotypical who are not comfortable in what they are supposed to do based on other perceptions, but that doesn't work, and it definitely doesn't work for people with autism and neurodiversities either.
It doesn't. You know, as human beings, we like categorizing. We like to say you're short, you're tall, you come from Wales, you come from, you know, we love categorizing because it's a way of sorting. We're all messy in reality, but we like to attribute characteristics and places to try and find touch points. And I think that's one of the things about neurodiversity I like. It's about having a conversation about our differences, but it also gives an opportunity to have a conversation about our similarities. And I think that's the bit that we need to have more of. That is, what can you do? What is like us? And I think we need to move away from the neurodivergence and the neurotypicals and say we are all neurodiverse, and we all have different spiky profiles, and that makes us different. But we can talk about what we have in common, and then we can discuss what we have differently about ourselves and be curious about that as well.
Yeah. I know we are short, we have run out of time, but this was such an interesting conversation, and I really want to ask you one last question before we go. How do you see the whole journey of finding a job for a neurodiverse individual who is seeking a job, and what advice do you have for them? Like,
I think the first thing is that gain a picture of your strengths and challenges, and that you can sell yourself in a way about what you can do. Employers want to employ you for what you can do. And if your traits, your ADHD traits, are something that you think brings skills and talents to the party, it may be relevant to share that information. So it might be you're an out-of-the-box thinker. You might be able to be hyper-focused on things of really great interest. So have the language to learn to sell yourself in a positive way, and then be upfront about the support that you might require. You don't always know it when you haven't done the job before. You may not be aware, but you can start the conversation is that I might need some training, some help and support to optimize my talent. So I think it's about giving people the language that they have, the glossary of terms that other people sometimes already have, and they can sell themselves in a proud way for the skills and talents they have. And it's allowing that to happen and learning those skills in that way. And then the employer needs to be receptive to different ways of inviting those people in, so you've got the same chance to showcase your talents.
I mean, there are a lot more questions I'd like to ask. There's a lot of things that I'd like to learn, and I feel most of our audience will also do that. But we really have run out of time, and I thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Amanda, for coming and joining us and being a guest on our show. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening in. Thank you for interpreting for us, and thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you so much. And we'll all meet next time. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.